Alright, everybody, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. It's Preacher Moss, of course, host of the SOS Shout Out Show. We get back on the air, trying to figure out a couple of things. Want to give a shout out to Sister Tana who joined us. I didn't know if I gave her enough time to let her know we were going live. So again, kudos to the Sister Satana. I also want to give a shout out to the great Maxine B. Cade of being financially independent now. She actually had her 80th birthday party last Saturday, and the great Mama Son Mary Moss will have her birthday party, 79th, believe it or not, alhamdulillah, on Saturday. So let me begin this by telling people, first of all, thank you. We've been on a hiatus, and sometimes a hiatus goes longer than it's supposed to go. And in this case, it's really trying to figure out a little bit what I wanted to do with the show, how I wanted to expand it. Some people are like, oh, you're still going to do the show? Yeah, we're going to do the show, but I think we want to look at some aspects of formatting. Now, let me say this first and foremost. This show, Change the Show, has nothing to do with the audience. We have an incredible audience with the Shout Out Show, soldiers, Hall of Famers. We love you and thank you so much for coming on the show. But also there is a level of growth and evolving that you want to do that keeps this thing interesting. So I'm announcing that we have another show. I have another show called Once Upon a Time Fill in the Blank, which you are most cordially invited for. It is not the live stream, though. It's more of a podcast. It lacks the interaction, but I take all the interaction that we get on this thing and on this project and I put it on that project. Some of the ideas and concepts. The first two shows, the first show is called Muslim Comics, Muslim Comedy, and the second show is called Nation of Islam. Well, I kind of do a bit of a deep dive, long form, talking about the Nation of Islam, where it is applicable now. I give it to you on that side and this side also from a bit of a lay person, but also a person who we read and we conjecture and we forecast and, we investigate. So being a part of that is extremely important. So I also want to give a shout out. Yesterday was my father's anniversary, 1 year anniversary since he returned to Allah. So I was traveling and trying to deal with that. It takes a little bit of calibration, even after a year, 2 years, 3 years, when you're dealing with the loss of a parent or a loved one. So yesterday was a bit reflective. It was funny. You worry about doing the shout out show. I realized how many episodes I'd done. My father actually watched and gone back and reviewed and things like that and gave critique. But this is not a show about loss. This is a show about gain, if you will. When I say gain, I don't mean gain like I'm talking about gaining knowledge. The name of this show, and we'll be back after this, the opening. But the name of the show is called Don't Go for the Okey Doke. As a celebration of my father's life and just the life around me, my friends, my family, my career, I came up with a title just called Don't Go for the Okey Doke. Now, some of the themes in this segment, if you will, they're going to hit a little hard. I'm just going to call it as I see it, but I also think that we as viewers and we as the consumers and constituents in this great experience of democracy called the United States of America really need to start looking at the fact that democracy is not working the way it should work. And when I say democracy is not working the way it should work, I mean that it is devoid of a moral compass. And when something is devoid of a moral compass, I don't know about you, I tend to run the opposite direction. But we can't run the opposite direction. The African American is confined by bodies of water. While you can fly away, you can take a boat away, you're still going to take away the aspect that there are people who are in your condition called African Americans, people of color, and indigenous folks who are going through the same rigmarole. That we are at this point as divorced away from the democratic process as we could be, or we have been in quite a long time. I'm talking about going back to the 50s and 60s. At least people understood that while democracy didn't work, they were creative enough to say that we can twist it to make it. We can twist it to make it something that's workable and functional. At this point in time, there's no magic. There's no smoke. There's no mirrors. We literally have to turn around and go, what in the world is going on. So for everybody that's tuned in, I see my shout out show soldiers. Thank you guys for joining. We're gonna go do a little bit of a deep dive, and I'm gonna have some fun because sometimes I try to give the information, but sometimes it's just so absurd. You just gotta laugh at it. You say keep laughing from crying. In the words of my good mentor Harry Weber, he once said. He said, "I love black people." He said, "The problem is we're good at making moves, horrible at making decisions." Well, I've made some decisions. We'll get away from moves, and I hope at the end of this, some of us start getting away from making moves and start making decisions. You're here on the Shout Out Show with your brother Preacher Moss. We'll be right back. Don't you move. Okay, we didn't move yet. This is what called getting back on the air, everybody. We'll be right back. Don't you move. Hold on a minute. There we go. I gotta find the thing. All right, there goes. All right, we're back. So let me give a shout out to our family who's so graciously joined us as we rev up the machine again. We'll give a shout out to Sister Ree. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sister Ree, who was kicking it with Mama Son down in Texas, having a groovy time. Thank you so much for coming over. She's asleep right now, but she so much enjoyed your company and hanging out and going to the store and all that stuff, and just to see these two come together after quite a number of years of not seeing each other. It was, I want to say, spiritually uplifting. So, Ree, on behalf of myself and the family, thank you so much for being you and being a part of our family. Thank you so much. Next up, my main man, Altaf Rashid. We call this brother Mr. 6 o'clock, the Canadian ambassador to the Shout Out Show, who does not miss a show. Even though we have been off for a while, my brother tuned in. He is here. Shout out to you, beloved. But make sure quality control of the show is back on the Shout Out Show on this side of the border and the other side of the border. Please give my salams to the Canadian Ummah. Tell them I miss them. I'll be there soon. But until that time, man, peace and blessings to your family. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to be revving this thing up, inshallah. New production, new ideas, new guests. I'm very excited. I'll talk for she. Thank you so much. Next up, my beloved brother JT. What's going on? Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My main man, kicking it. Last time I was in Milwaukee. I'm in Chicago, so I'm figuring out how I can get down there and hang out. We had a beautiful time in Milwaukee. After the ISNA conference, he and his wife came and picked me up. We went up to Milwaukee. We hung out a couple days, man. It was always good for my spirit. And I'm going to talk about the ISNA show as well. Good to see you, Watt. Big brother Bilal Salahuddin and his queen sister Sonia Dalton Salahuddin. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to you, big brother. Thank you so much. You know what I put Bilal is funny. Bilal texted me like, "Are we going live today? Like you on production?" I'm like, "Yeah, we going live today, brother." I know it's been, and I don't know what it is. People were really checking out the reruns, the replays, the shout out shows. So whoever's doing that, thank you. It's probably one person watching it 54, 55 times. Alhamdulillah. What's going on, beloved? He says he's giving a shout out from the Salahuddin family. We're going to put that love out in the atmosphere. Good to see you, beloved. And my main man, Eric Carter from South Carolina. What's going on, beloved? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good to see you in the building, my dear brother. Thank you so much for tuning in. I tell people, man, you know, you have people who are just the foundations of your joint. They're not going to go anywhere, man. But we're going to be expanding. I hope I'm going to be able to take everybody to the new next project. Again, that project is called Once Upon a Time, Fill in the Blank. I hope you guys enjoy it. All right. And what's a show without the exec producer, Sister Satana Whitfield? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Giving a shout out to the SOS family. I know I hit her late. I said I'm gonna do the show today, and she's probably scrambling, doing something, but might been cooking on the bus, driving someplace going, that Negro was going to do the show. But I give this to her. She tuned in. You know what? Because that's what executive producers do to make sure that I'm on the one and twos and not screwing up on this project. We appreciate you, Sister Tana. Shout out to you. Now I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of breakdown of what's been going on. When we left back in August, it was because we had begun this whole process of revamping the show a little bit, but also I was doing a show at ISNA, and that show was bringing attention and awareness to gun violence, not only in the United States, but in the city of Chicago. We had framed this thing with the help of comedians. No, let me stop. I had framed this thing, Shaitan and I had framed this thing with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we took a very, very unpopular topic. We took a very, very unpopular topic and we made it part of a comedy dialogue whereby we had people speaking about the need to address gun violence. Shout out to Anwar Khan. Shout out, of course, to my main man, Ashar Aziz. And shout out to Iman and some of our other organizations that came out. And it was really, really important. Now, the show in and of itself was a great show. A shout out to all the comedians, Sabine Sadiq, Jeremy McClellan, Yasmin Al-Hadi, Moses the Comic, Omar Regan. We had a great show. But what was uplifting is that, we put our money where our mouth is in terms of the show. I know you guys hear me talk about, community outreach and community engagement. Well, this was important. This was one of the reasons I had to step away from the show a minute, because I had to put my money where my mouth is. And I had to put my reputation where my mouth is, where we went into O Block. Now, if you have your phones, if you want to know where Preacher Moss went, if you go to your phone and Google O Block, on Google, just Google O Block. It'll tell you it's the most dangerous block in the city of Chicago, potentially the most dangerous block in the United States. And we went there as an advocate for the Shout Out Show, but also as an advocate for human excellence. We went there. And the reason we went there, and you guys heard the statistics, there's 77 neighborhoods in the city of Chicago. Out of those 77 neighborhoods, 15 of those neighborhoods represent 85% of all the gun violence in the city of Chicago. And we went to the top one out of the 15. And what I found there was luck. I found people who were struggling. Yes, I found people who had problems, everyday problems, systemic problems. We all go through this. But I think the thing that was really, really important was you had to go. And you had to put out your right foot in the space of prophetic tradition. Your right foot in the tradition of a Malcolm. Your right foot in the tradition of Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Honorable Minister Farrakhan. Imam Wabdi Muhammad. You had to step out, Martin Luther King. You had to step out and understand that this was the place where the reach was needed the most. And not only going to O Block and meeting them and talking with them and fellowshipping with them, but telling them, because O Block has seen quite a number of new shahadas. And what I told you guys, what happened in O Block was around Ramadan, the Muslims, primarily Sadiq Ali and Kanoa Ali, not related, they had gone to O Block and developed relationships, and they started praying, making salat in O Block. Now people say, Muslims did this, yeah, but anybody could do it. Christian, Muslims, Jew. But the point is they went and did it. No support, no money. It's just they're going to lead by faith. And I think it was really interesting because they did something that the government couldn't do, the police couldn't do, because they haven't had an incident of gun violence since Ramadan in those areas. And they've gone around to those other 15 neighborhoods, 14 other neighborhoods, and begun praying. They're doing a documentary on it. Inshallah, Allah bless them to be successful. The highlight of the show was having them come out of Chicago. Not out of Chicago, but have them come out of O Block. And the funny part was, the things they see on TV, they never really actually expect to meet. So it was for them the first time they met comedians, not just me, but they came down to the ISNA show. And at the ISNA show, we gave them love. We acknowledged that these brothers, particularly young brothers, the sisters didn't come. I was hoping they would, but these young brothers came down, and I told them, hey man, we love you, and you need to hear it from me in front of all these people, that you're important, that you have value. And I told them, when you need me, you call on me. I don't care, old block, St. Louis, wherever. I said, you call on me, particularly as a Muslim. Great exchange, amazing exchange. And I will be going back to O Block this weekend to go check on the brothers, because that's what I'm going to do. Alhamdulillah. But I want to get to this thing about don't go for the Okey Doke. And I use O Block for a reason. The first thing about understanding don't go for the Okey Doke is that people, when they give you the Okey Doke, when they try in many ways to get you disillusioned about something or misinformed, what they count on is that you don't investigate. They count on the fact that we don't communicate. This is the communication age. You have phones with cameras in them. You can FaceTime. You can text. You can, but still, people. Hey, Mom, can you get that phone? Hey, Mom, can you get that phone? All right, thank you. Thank you. Hey, this is live. This is live TV, people. So forgive me. This is the way it goes. Well, at least you know where I am. I'm in Washington D.C. with my mother downstairs watching TV. I forgot to take the phone off. So let me continue what I was saying about don't go for the Okey Doke. So between 2023 and 2024, the actual term for the voters, the people who elect political leaders to their positions, that give them, in some regards, this power to have power over you, the term should be don't go for the Okey Doke. We're being set up for a letdown, but we've already been let down. Let me explain. As I was working with the brothers in O Block, it becomes painfully apparent that these brothers suffer from image issues. And the image issues are not the image they have of themselves, but it's the image that the world has of them. That somehow, some way that they can't get it right. Understanding that being in one of the most dangerous projects in the world, if you're making it to the age of 23, 24, 25, you figured out something to live that long. Life expectancy is not that big. And also, to stay out of prison. And even those who go to prison to come out and somehow figure out how are we going to be fully functional in this society, given my past, given my future. How do we do that? To be amongst brothers like Sadiq Safir, who's on the phone bailing out brothers from prison, watching him on the phone, talk to mothers, bailing out. And I'm not engaged like that, but this is the things that I'm seeing. And what I'm saying is that there's a working genius that's out there that's being overruled. It's been overlooked. When I say a working genius, I'm like, people have been getting things right for a long time. The problem is we want to be right in front of the people who we think can do something for us. And these people can do nothing for us. Stop and think about your parents. Stop and think about your parents. Stop and think about your grandparents. Because you go back far enough, you're going to realize they're not too far removed from slavery. You're going to realize that they came through spaces and situations, scenarios, which clearly didn't lend to them the advantages that we have now. That somehow, some way, they were able to flourish in the absence of applicable law that would allow them to do things like own homes, borrow money, go to college. You get the gist of what I'm saying. And what I understand about these things, and this could be also lent to the idea that they grew up in times of segregation. When segregation gave them time to work on themselves. It gave them time to be very, very introspective, because when people don't think you have value, they leave you alone. And the beauty of a Malcolm, the beauty of a Marcus Garvey, and people like this, a Muhammad Ali, is being left in those spaces. They were able to create, I want to say, safe spaces where they could think positively about themselves and connect the dots with the people that stay around them. We don't have that as much today. We take it for granted, thinking that positivity is just going to rush our way. It does not rush our way. It has to be built, it has to be nurtured, it has to be distributed, and then you got to repeat. You got to build it, you got to nurture it, you got to distribute it, and repeat. The interesting part about right now, because I have to get to politics, is there's a politics that's out there, like I said, it is absent I want to say absent or derelict of a moral compass, a basic thing beyond religion that says that's fair, that's compassion, that's mercy. We deal with political parties, and I may be wrong for saying this, you can correct me, but politics is given out now whereby people believe that they are the owners of mercy. That if you are in a very difficult situation, it's not me deliberating about the money to appropriate to deal with that situation. It is that I hold the purse strings. And if I hold the purse strings, I can get you to do what I want you to do, as opposed to me serving you and making you and putting you in a situation whereby you can flourish, or putting you in an even equitable situation. Well, the drawbacks now are not just welfare anymore. The drawbacks now are education. They say one of the biggest drags on the GDP is what? Student loans. That education that has to be paid for is now bringing down the economy. You go to any other countries around, believe me, leave the United States, get yourself a passport, and watch how kids go to school, how they go to university. Because people believe in that space that you have to invest in education, because the educated individual is the one that can contribute the most to that society. We don't have that here. We have dilapidated schools. We have old archaic curriculums. We have teachers who don't want to be teachers, but they can't go nowhere else. And then in the end, we have all the politicians that say that's all you need to do. If you want to do more, you can't do more. That's it. If you want to do less, we're with you. The rules now for 2023 to 2024, these 2024 elections, is don't go for the Okey Doke. And I'm going to give you some very, very basic but very, very specific understanding of what the Okey Doke is going to be. This election is not going to be an election for your choices. This is going to be an election strictly for positioning. When I say positioning, positioning. Democrats know, Republicans know, we should know. We cannot put faith in the system that continues to fail us. And in this particular system, I remember when I did down ballot voting, and I laughed about, in the end, we're going to have two old white men. You're going to have two old white men. And in this current society, these old white men are going to have the comfort and the environment to be old white men. To look back on what happened in the past, and they have no shame. To look back on things that are happening, where there's issues of just disrespect, issues of disillusionment, issues of just unfairness, they're not going to worry about it. See, in the Trump era, and you have to give Trump some credit. Not a lot. But you have to give Trump some credit, because this was who he was. He was a cheat. He was a liar. He was a bad businessman. He told you he wasn't, but the facts, of course, before court, bear it out. Trump University, it's a farce. Trump Charities. Why would you believe that a man is going to be charitable when he's a crook? Think about these things. All right? And then the other part is the election process. You had somebody who came into the electoral process who's literally destroyed it, continually trying to destroy it. But he knows he has no pushback. Because black folks and Latinos, we vote, but this is America. Push comes to shove, it's not enough blacks and Latinos and indigenous people to actually make the difference, because we won't go to war. We won't do what they did at the Capitol. We won't stomp them. We won't do that. We're not trained that way. Group of people run through something, it's probably looting, like in Philadelphia. But we won't stand on principle and say, we're not moving. Our line in the sand is here, and this is what we believe. We have not done a great job of telling folks what we believe. And in the interstitial, people start telling you what you should believe. That the upcoming political planks are going to be so far away from the needs of African Americans, Latinos, women, Muslims, other minorities. It's going to be so far away that the election is going to the point it won't look like you. that the advocacy that we saw from the Obama years, gone. Even the advocacy we saw for Joe Biden, gone. And the reason is, brothers and sisters, we're not holding people accountable. And the flip side is they will hold us accountable if we don't do what they want to do. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back talking about Don't Go for the Okey Doke here on the Shout Out Show. Don't you move. Hang in there. I got more information. We'll be right back. Yeah, so, my first, I guess, introduction to convenient urgent care, they were providing masks and supplies for people who didn't have supplies during COVID. And I went to pick them up and was going to take them around to some of the local areas. And I ran into a brother named Ijaz Saeed. And as I began to talk to Ijaz, it was very, very clear that this brother had a vision for community service. Oftentimes, when you have urgent cares in a situation that they're not necessarily doing a prevention or education. He came up with the term a home of the smart patient, and I understand what that means. It means that people really want to be in tune about their health, but at the same time, they also want to be in tune about the people who are providing health. This is a very organic relationship. And little did I know, a year or so later, I would actually have to call on their services when I was in dealing with some physical trauma, if you will. And I have to say, they held my hand and they took me through the process. The offerings of telehealth, the offerings of being able to walk in consistent. I was in pretty bad shape, but they treated me like I was the president of the United States, not that one, Obama. Okay, I'm joking. But what I want to say is the professionalism, the dedication, the care, compassion, and the consistency, all the things I just named, makes convenient urgent care the space you want to go to. 3 locations in the Houston area: Cypress, Pasadena, and Parker Road in Houston. But I want to say the overall conceptual understanding of convenient urgent care is that they care for their patients, even when the patients don't know how to care for themselves. Check them out. All right, we're back. And here on the Shout Out Show, talking about Don't Go for the Okey Doke. Something that's looming right now as we speak, as we're watching the show, is that we're looking pretty much at another shutdown of the government. So I can't remember how old I was when the government first had a shutdown. Both of my parents were civil service workers. My mother worked for Health and Human Services. My father worked for National Institutes of Health in Bethesda. When it happened, it was such an aberration because a lot of people in the Washington, D.C. area, particularly African Americans, found wealth in middle class working for the government, civil service workers, Maryland, D.C., and Virginia. And when it shut down, I can tell you that as a young kid watching my parents were mortified. They were mortified. It was just the idea that you would shut down an apparatus that is so tangibly aware that it runs the country. Taxes, health, research, all these things. And it was shut down in, I think it was like maybe 3 days or 4 days. But then it doesn't happen for like 20 some years. Like you never hear about the government shutting down. Until you get out of the Reagan era and you start seeing people really going after big government, quote unquote. And I understand that, sometimes big government is not necessarily efficient. I understand that. But the answer is not cutting out the people who need the benefits from big government. And I'm not just talking about welfare. I'm not talking about wealth. I'm talking about tax credits. I'm talking about the ability of people to buy homes. I'm talking about fairness and equity and loans. I'm talking about education. And it was always pointed that somehow, some way, that the people who relied on government somehow had a character flaw. Hear what I'm saying? Somehow had a character flaw. Something was broken in us whereby we needed the government. Historically, African American has not been able to count on the government. The government has pushed themselves on the African American in many ways to handcuff our progress and growth. It's done that for pretty much every minority that's come here in the United States. In for a penny, in for a pound. I'll give you a loan for a house, but the loan for the house is 30 years. By the time you pay the loan off, you probably bought 3 houses. The only thing that catches up is equity in markets like that. But that's not the plan of what I'm talking about in terms of the growth and development for families and communities. When we're talking about a government shutdown, we've had a lot of government shutdowns in the last couple of years. Don't go for the Okey Doke. When they shut down the government, I need everyone to listen to me. If you don't know this, here's what I'm saying. When they shut down the government, it's with the understanding that the government has been inefficient over a period of time. Inefficient over a period of time, despite new policies that have been implemented by these politicians. That a tax cut that Trump put out years ago that cut out so many safety net programs, that tax cut has come back, and now government is inefficient because it does not collect enough taxes because we're giving it to the wealthy. Don't go for the Okey Doke. Clearly, a tax cut that goes from Trump, but also goes back to George Bush, with the idea that you do the tax cuts now and you let other people pay for it later. When I say other people pay for it, look at me. They're talking about me, they're talking about you. Because America lives on the myth that it's this great corporate industry, and it is, but it's a great corporate industry based on the fact that it doesn't pay taxes. Around the world, America is known for not paying its debts. But you better not miss a couple cable payments, the water bill, stuff like that, because they'll cut you off just like that. So what's the difference? The difference is there's a pattern, and it's a palatable pattern because people are not speaking up. A couple years ago, I can't remember how many years ago, people were making jokes about Wesley Snipes for not paying his taxes. A lot of people make jokes about Wesley Snipes not paying his taxes, but if you go into the devil in the details, it wasn't Wesley Snipes out here on his own. Wesley Snipes was a part of a group of people who did not believe in paying their taxes. They felt like it was illegal. They felt like constitutionally, the government, the United States and the government didn't have a leg to stand on. That we pay taxes out of fear. We don't pay taxes out of a feeling of patriotism and things like that. We don't do that. When I pay taxes, I don't feel good about paying my taxes because I don't see where it's applicable to the environment around me. Or I'll pay taxes for the lessers who don't have, but I don't see that money going to them. And then on the other side, I don't see people chipping in the fair share. But I'm bringing up Wesley Snipes because out of that group, if you look at the group of people that he was with, the little organization, he was the only one who went to jail. Someone else got probation, but Wesley Snipes went to jail. And he went to jail because when he went to court, they asked him, did he have the money? He had the money, but they said, we don't have all of it. He went to jail. He got sentenced. So you say, don't go for the Okey Doke. What is that? It's a sign for everybody. It says, you know what? We have a right to any kind of income that you come from. Any kind of income that you grow into. Any kind of revenue that you're developing. Uncle Sam has it. Now, this is devoid of being a part of the funding process or the creative process. But look at how we think. We're going to pay those taxes. Over and over and over again, I begin to question. What's the viability of this process moving forward? You're going to have a president, brothers and sisters, who, not a president, let me stop. Let me say this, that we had a president who refused to turn over his tax returns. And the connectedness of him refusing to reveal his tax returns is the fact that he's going to court now. New York City has snatched all of his LLCs, all of his businesses. They're going to liquefy. They're going to liquidate all of his businesses. He can't do business. He can't get a business permit in the state of New York City, which is, of course, the economic hub here in the United States. He can't do it. And you're going, why? Because they were able to look at his taxes and things that he had valued, and they found that he had committed fraud. This is the guy that committed fraud. He's still running for the United States of America. He's still running to be the president of the United States of America. Tonight, you're going to have a debate with GOP hopefuls who they don't have a chance in hell of being elected. Satana, tell the truth. They ain't got a chance in hell of being elected. I can run them down. One of them is Indian. He ain't going to win. I'm like, he just ain't going to win on GP. Tim Scott, the one black guy, he's a bachelor. They can't figure out if he got a girlfriend or not. He can't figure out he got it. Man, you can't run for president and say you got a girlfriend, we can't find her. That's all I'm saying. Right? You got Ron DeSantis who's trying to rewrite Black history. He need to rewrite his own history. I never seen somebody lose this badly. The closest GOP hopeful outside of Trump is 40 points away. 40 points away. Now listen, I'm a believer. I'm a believer. You know, I pray to Allah for a lot of things. But I even think Allah would look at a GOP hopeful and be like, hey man, that ain't gonna happen. You ain't gonna be president. You just need to stop. You ain't gonna be vice president. They're polling so low they can't win. Christie can't win. Pence can't win. DeSantis can't win. Haley can't win. Scott can't win. What are all these people that can't win? Then on the Democratic side, here we go. We got Joe Biden. He can't remember LL Cool J's name. It's LL Cool J. LL Cool J. 3 of the letters are just in his name. LL Cool J. That's a J and 2 L's. And a cool in between. And then he flips and calls a man a boy. Well, I'm going to tell y'all something. And black folks need to stop overreacting. Stop overreacting. Ooh, he called him a boy. Joe Biden is 192 years old. He's 192 years old. He saw slavery. He saw slavery. That's what I believe with Joe Biden. And I'm thinking, you know, Joe Biden's having flashbacks to when black men were boys. Because I'm going to call it out right now. That last election, Joe Biden was in bad shape. And who'd he come to? The black folk. I'm going to do this for you. And I remember he said, you're going to be back in chains. Remember that? He said, you don't vote for me, you're going to be in chains. And now LL Cool J is, he used to be a man, now he's a boy. Come on, folks. Think of that. Listen, we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. Trump may win if he can stay out of court. Now, he's not going to stay out of court. He has too many cases. They're not going to suspend his trials just because he's running for president. This is how I know. I read a manifest from DA Fannie Willis, the woman who's the prosecutor down in Atlanta. I read one of her legal papers. And in her legal papers, one of which she roasted Congressman John, I can't remember his name, but she roasted him trying to tell him, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Congress cannot subpoena my records. Congress can't say, what are your records? This is how ludicrous this is. Politicians are thinking, because I'm a politician, you have to give me the stuff for your defense or your prosecution so I could look at it. I mean, this is how ridiculous it's gotten. This is how dumb it's gotten. You're going to have a GOP debate. Ain't nobody going to win. The person who's going to win isn't going to show up. Then on the other side, the person who's going to win has it in mind that they're going to ride it out. They're going to ride the clock out. Don't go for the Okey Doke. You can't ride the clock out. Let me tell y'all something very, very, this is ghetto-ish. I'm going to tell you this. But the GOP got a lot of snitches. Forget snitches get stitches. In the GOP, snitches get elected. And what I'm telling you this believe me. I believe someone in Trump's own family is going to tell on him. Because when Fannie start giving out that time, a whole lot of people are going to chirp. Because in Georgia, because they have the strength of the local courts, you can't be usurped by the federal court. The federal court can get hold of you after Georgia gets a hold of you. And if you're looking at anything in terms of all these filings and stuff like that, if for anyone else, let me just say this, for anyone else, if they came to the court with this stuff on you in a RICO trial, you'd be locked up. You would be locked up. You wouldn't be allowed to come out of jail. In fact, of all the 19 people who went to criminal complaint for this RICO trial, guess what? The only person who went to jail was who? A black guy. And what did he say? I can't afford this. Listen, everyone else believes they can afford to ride out the clock. Don't go for the Okey Doke. In the legal judicial system, when it's played correctly, you can't ride out the clock. You can get continuances and things like that, but at some point in time, when they want you, the rubber will meet the road and they will get you. You can be innocent, you could be guilty, but when they want you, they can get you. What am I saying? Just the process to get the trial is so tedious these days that you may be broke. You may be damn near indigent and can't defend yourself. You can't retain a lawyer. You lose your house, you lose your family, you lose your car, you lose your sins, your savings. Try to defend something where you are true, whereby when the process is over, the lawyer's got your money. You've been dragged through the news, and guess what? So what, you're innocent. My bad. But my bad can't get your reputation back. My bad can't get back the money you put out for legal service, particularly when you go against the government. You can't sue. You can't sue for legal expenses. Thus, we have a case now with Donald Trump, and here's the beautiful part of it. They can't, in this situation, this scenario, they can't keep going. Now they're going to campaign funds. Now listen, we're going to take a quick break. Don't move because I want to wrap up and get you guys out of here accordingly. Stick with me. This is Preacher Miles on the ShOUT Show. Don't go for the Okey Doke.
Tarife Atar. The scent of enlightenment. A gentle reminder that air, water, and fire indeed are life-giving essences. Appreciate the intersection of time and luxury. Magnify your essence. Tarife Atar.
All right, we're back on this segment of the ShOUT Show called "Don't Go for the Okey Doke." There's a famous, comedian. They call him Chitlin Circuit comedian. I don't like to call him that. Mantan Moreland. And Mantan Moreland had a great saying. In fact, if you ever watch the movie Bamboozled, they play on something that Mantan Moreland said with the minstrel shows. And the term is, ain't nobody in here but us chickens. Now, the setup for ain't nobody in here but us chickens is a farmer is looking around for somebody who's been stealing eggs and chickens, right? He's going around there, and it's two black guys who are in there. They've been stealing eggs and chickens. And the farmer said, who in there? That's what he said. Who in there? Like, the black folks are so dumb, they're going to go, ain't nobody in this but it's chickens. Like, all of a sudden, chickens could talk. You have the reverse of this now with the GOP and the Democrats. When you say who's accountable, they say ain't nobody in this but it's chickens. Systematic of the Okey Doke is that we're now beginning to understand how powerless these people are. That corporations are buying agendas, they are pushing agendas. If you haven't been aware of the Clarion Group and groups like that and these think tanks that have evolved over the years, then you've been sleeping. You have been sleeping. thinking that politicians somehow are virtuous and they get to that point. No. They cut deals with the devil, or worse, they cut deals with corporations that operate like the devil. And what happens is the devil always comes to collect. And just the same as I told you about Mantan Moreland and ain't nobody in his but his chickens, it's the same thing when the devil comes to collect with these politicians. Because ain't nobody in Congress, ain't nobody in the Senate, ain't nobody in the White House but chickens. A bunch of retread people who have not been able to be successful in other aspects of life, or was successful and became more and more ambitious. You know, Whitney Houston had this thing. If you watch her documentary, "Can I Be Me?" I didn't see all of it, but this is really important. Whitney Houston said something I thought was groundbreaking. Maybe she got it from somewhere. I don't know. But a reporter asked Whitney Houston. She said, "Whitney, does success change you?" She said, "No, success does not change you." Whitney Houston said, "Fame changes you. Success doesn't change you. Fame changes you. You know why? Because you can be successful over a long period of time. But fame is temporary. Fame is the eye. It's the eye. It's what people see you as. See, I've been around people who've been famous. And when I look around sometimes in the room, I see people who are less famous. And what the less famous do is we're going to hang out with the famous person. Hopefully we can get famous again. That's Hollywood. In the political scheme, what happens in the retread scheme of things, what happens is they are revisiting things. For those of you that don't have a playbook, if you want to know about Donald Trump is pulling out the Richard Nixon playbook. You criminalize things that are not criminal. You criminalize people who haven't done anything. You criminalize folks so you can show them to other folks to say that these are less thans, these are others. And when you have the less than and the others, what happens is you begin to value them a whole different way. So the black vote is not important as much as it used to be. The female vote is not important as it used to be. The Latino vote, a little bit more important because they're new to the system. That the level of oppression that has been historically applied across some of the groups that are talked about has not really touched them. And if it gets rough for my Latino brothers and sisters, particularly Mexicans, you can go back to Mexico. You can go back to Puerto Rico. You can go back to Honduras. You can go back to Colorado. Not Colorado, but Colombia. What I'm saying is this track, if you will, of black intelligence, black intellectual prowess, Muslim intellectual prowess and jurisprudence is being tested as we speak right now. That Christian temerity is being tested as we speak right now. You have a political party that has turned its back on religion. It is hard to watch the GOP. They used to have something in the GOP. So I don't even remember they used to have the religious right. There's no religious right anymore. There's no religion, period. And for those who are really, really paying attention, they're going to pick on everyone who is religious. Wake up, Muslims. That's you. They're not going after Jews. Damn sure ain't going after Christians. They're going after you. And here's the thing. Stop perpetuating that we're punked by these people. Stop acting like, you know what, Islamophobia is the reason I can't go out of my house. Oh my gosh, somebody's going to pull my hijab. Oh my gosh, they looked at me funny. Oh my gosh, somebody called me a name. Deal with it. We've been dealing with this stuff for all our lives. Stop acting like Islam is a punk religion. It ain't no punk religion. I was a Christian. Guess what? Christianity to me at the time wasn't a punk religion. It's a religion where people stood up. They found their moral compass and they demanded justice. They demanded justice not from these people, but that what they derived from their God, what they believed in, Jesus, Allah. This is the whole crux of this conversation. Don't go for the Okey Doke. That people who are soulless can't have power over people who have soul. People who have no mercy can't have power over people who are bound by mercy. And as you begin to understand this a little bit clearer, in the next 2 to 3 months, you're going to see some things that you never saw before. You're going to see how the political process that has imprisoned thousands of people now is no longer applicable to one man. And the reason why it's not applicable to one man, they're going to tell you why, because he is special. He's not even president anymore, but somehow he is special. You know why? Because there are people who aspire to be that man. There are people who aspire to be in his shadow. There are people who have done nothing in their life. Nothing in their life. They have abused, they have oppressed, but they found in themselves all of a sudden a hero that's in front of them that they can identify with. That the process did not apply to them. Some of the things that we talk about, and I remember when I was a kid, we would talk about this. Some of the things we used to talk about being rich when we were young. I got you. Some of the things we talked about being rich when I think about when we were kids, it's just the fact that you didn't have to deal with certain things. That being rich moved you to a certain level because you had money. That you didn't have to deal with poverty. If I'm rich, I don't have to live here. But your family is still here. But your brothers and sisters are still here. Your friends are still here. Being rich should be that I can alleviate that condition. But we didn't think of that way. We thought about ourselves. Why? Because the model in front of us taught us this is what you do with your money. If anybody ever watches the NFL or the NBA, I'm going to tell you how it works on draft night. What happens on draft night, and I have this on good information from one of my clients that was in the NBA. He said, you know, when you're drafted, you leave from New York City and they take you to your team. It's a quick, hurried goodbye to your family, your loved ones. They take you because you signed that contract, and they take you to whatever city you are, and they take you around the city. You know why? Because you are an asset. You at that point, you're an unknown asset. We don't know what the value is. The value is what your contract is. But guess what? They're trying to get more out of your contract than what you've been valued at. But the thing that's subtle is they separate you. Is that they separate you from people that you've known your whole life. They separate you. And here's the deal. They dangle the money in front of you, in front of those people, and then they separate you. And when you show up to a DC or Dallas or New York or LA, the first thing they do is they make sure you are not going to be around the people that you just left. That when you buy a house, you're going to buy a house around people like you. All right? People like you, or people they want you to think like them. You're going to buy houses around them, or apartments or condos. And in that system, you're indoctrinated. And slowly but surely, you get taken away. Let me flip the scenario. Years ago, in terms of voting, the idea, particularly with the African American vote coming out of the Civil Rights Act, was the fact that the African American vote can be watered down if you put more and more and more items and agendas in it. That you couldn't handle just crime and education. It had to be this. And let's throw it out here now. Civil rights, it's not even a civil rights issue. Civil rights is an LGBTQ issue. We lost it. Call it what it is. Even in this Muslim community, I was at ISNA. The one workshop that was, I'm talking about not attended, I'm talking about over-attended. They had to push people into the session. And it was what? How to deal with LGBTQ and our children. Why? Been going for the Okey Doke. But looking the other way and thinking, not me, hell yeah, you. Why not you? So let's get to the rap. This is Satana's favorite part. When I get to the rap. I said don't go for the Okey Doke. But let me throw this out. One of the weakest positions you can have is when you're in a purely reactive position. That the Okey Doke at one point in time was a farce. We would laugh at it. Now it is the thing that replaces truth. And now, in the absence of truth, we look at the lie and we don't say that's a lie. We say, how valuable is it? How valuable is it? How valuable is it? How can we put it out here? The truth now is not a weighted part of our conscience. You can tell the truth, but if you are in a group of people, it's 100 people, and 99 people lie, and you tell the truth, people are going to listen to the 99 people. Why? Because we haven't developed communities that take that 99 to 50 to 40 to it's a large group of people telling the truth. That now when you go up the flagpole and you want to scream and shout injustice and racism, nobody hears you because the flagpole is not tall anymore. It's short. because people have been knocking it down. Whether it's affirmative action, whether it's voting, they've been knocking it down for years. And what they're going to tell you, and I agree, is you had every opportunity to do something. But we were mystified. We didn't think it would happen. But for us, no. It can't happen. White America goes, no, our democratic system protects us, and then June 6th happened. And the democratic process was a farce. And black folks sat by walking, going, and Latinos and people around the world going, we knew it weren't working anyway, because this is white folk going for the Okey Doke. The danger is they're in positions of power and going for the Okey Doke. My last point, and I'll wrap here. Be very, very careful of your relationships with the media. Be very, very distinct and disciplined about who you communicate with and where you are communicating. The danger of the Okey Doke now is it's a snitch network. That people will tell on you. That people will espouse maybe some things you didn't say because it's of value. It gets them someplace. It gives them a position, strategic advantage, something at work, something at church, hell, something in the mosque. We see it all the time. Cling to the truth. Fight for the truth. Find people who are truthful thinking. Find people who have a moral compass. And in closing, don't go for the Okey Doke. It's Preacher Moss on the Shout Out Show. We'll see you next week, inshallah. Thank you, everybody, so much. Shout out to you, Sultana, for working with us. Appreciate you guys. See you again next week, inshallah.